Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Whittle's Read. Today, I'm actually halfway through filming a different video, but I just had to stop halfway because I realised I need to make a whole separate video just on this one book. That book being, as you might have already seen from the title, Fragility by DiAngelo. This book is so unique in that not only is the author, DiAngelo, an academic, not only does she know her stuff on this content, she has worked as a racial sensitivity trainer for almost her entire career. So not only does she know what she's talking about, she has spent a lifetime communicating it face-to-face to individuals and making these arguments. So not only are the arguments sound in their basis, they are communicated so effectively and so well that this is not a dense book. This reads like a conversation. It doesn't read like an academic paper. And it is honestly, it sounds strange to say because of the content matter, but it's an enjoyable read. Because it is, to me, I enjoy philosophy, I enjoy reading things that make me think, and my God, did this book make me think. And the next thing I want to say is I have to be very careful with what I want to say about this book because DiAngelo is so excellent. Because I am not an expert. I am not a great communicator. I cannot make these arguments as well as DiAngelo does in this book. And if I try, I will not do them justice, and the worst possible case is that people take what I have to say about this book as a substitute for reading the book itself, and that is not okay. The only reason I'm making this video is in the hope of convincing people to potentially read it, or in the hope that people who never were going to read it at least get some sense of what it's about and what it's trying to say, and maybe does provoke some thoughts and does a minor good that is minor, especially in comparison to this book in general. The next thing to say is who this book is for. DiAngelo points out right in the beginning that this book really is for the progressive left, for people who claim they're not racist, or people who try very hard to not be racist. Because those people are wrong. I'm someone on the progressive left who has definitely claimed in the past to not be racist. But there's a problem inherently with that claim. We live in a society of prejudice. We are raised in this society, and children of any age just suck up everything they see in the world around them, even the things that we don't know they do. Every social cue, every social interaction that is done. And even if you had perfect parents, children go to school, they have different teachers, they have different leaders, they have different role models in their community, they've got television and music and everything. And so things like stereotypes, things like treating different people differently are embedded into us from a profoundly early age. And that is discussed in this book, but again, that's an argument I feel I can't make because I cannot make it as well as she does. And the next thing to think is, perhaps you think you're the exception. I thought I was a bit of an exception. I've spent the vast majority of my life as a white minority in the Middle East, in a community with dozens and dozens of nationalities. And I thought that made me immune. I thought that meant that I couldn't hold prejudice. And I was wrong. I was very wrong. And I believe I started to have a bit of an inkling of that before I read this book, but after I read that book, I now know it as a fact. What DiAngelo then does is discuss how framing racism purely through morality is a dangerous and often harmful thing to do, which is an incredibly interesting argument, and talking about how harmful it can be to paint it that only bad people are racist and good people can't be racist. And the reason that's harmful is the first act of someone who thinks they're a good person and thinks they're not racist, the first thing to do when they're accused of racism is to try to defend themselves and defend their good name. You don't think, perhaps I could. You don't engage in that conversation. You immediately deny. Immediately say, no, I've had this life experiences. You don't know me personally. I've had this relationship with this person. It's become a bit of a joke now, the I have a black friend card. But people use it, and people use it themselves in different ways. And what she says is, great, now any option for productivity, even the people who believe racism exists, which is shockingly somehow not everyone, have shut themselves off to learning, about the problem that they are themselves a part of. And that's the worst. Because if we want allies have to at first admit that they potentially could be part of the problem. And maybe you are an exception. Maybe you are some rare exception. And if you can get through this entire book without any of it even coming close to you, then perhaps you're right. But I dare you to find out. I dare you to open this book and read through every question, every setting, every instance that she directs towards you, the reader, and really feel if it hits you or not. But the great thing is, this book isn't preachy. This isn't saying, you're a white person and therefore you're bad. The opposite. She wants to get rid of the idea that racism... It's not that racism isn't bad. It's that framing it and looking at it at only bad people can be racist hurts people. It makes racism stronger, not weaker. And it's not accusatory at all, because she attributes it to the entire society, to everyone. You are not doing anything wrong that makes you a worse person compared to anyone else. But you are allowing it to continue. And you're not doing the good you could be. And so it's extremely important to listen and to read through this and see if you can start to pointing to those parts inside your own life and see where you can make positive change. But this book isn't accusatory. You are not laid with accusations. It is never aimed directly at you. And Robin DiAngelo just does a fantastic job of pointing out how obvious the problem is and how inherent the problem is, and how I had to admit that there was no way I could not be part of the problem. And yet, I don't feel shamed by it. I don't feel guilty about it. I felt angry about it because I had seemingly no choice but to be born in a racist society. But now I have some fantastic tools to work against that. And the thing I have to admit, because whilst this book is very much about racism, and I do not want to do the horrible thing that people do where, a racist who comes up and they say, what about gender equality? What about class equality? All of these are issues that need to be addressed, and deflecting from one to the other is not the answer. But I also have to admit, I'm a white, cis, straight male, which means I am at the top of a racist society. I'm at the top of a patriarchy. I'm at the top of a homophobic society, and I'm at the top of a transphobic society. And so these lessons of how to understand your own role in these issues, and understanding how to amend your role in these issues, not because you're seeking an apology, but because you're seeking to be better, not for the sake of feeling better about yourself, but because you think it's right, and because you think you should. This is such a good toolbox. I've tabbed this dozens of places, and some of them are just wicked good points that she makes. But a lot of them, like there's one instance where Robin DiAngelo points out herself, someone who's been in this role and in this career for ages, for decades, points out an instance of where she herself was racist. And it's an act so many people, even my first instinct was, but was that really racist? And I just read half this book, which told me that was such a stupid reaction, but I still had it. And then she talks about how she dealt with that situation, and how it was done without guilt, without emotion, and it was done purely from a pragmatic way to fix the situation, to make it better. And she did so effectively. And I just had to sit back and go, really? It's that easy? It's that easy and I haven't done it? Because I was that stubborn in admitting that maybe I was part of the problem? And so, one of those tabs in here, I know which one it is. I believe it's this one. Yeah. Is that conversation that she had, where she amends her racism. And that conversation I can use as a model for dozens of conversations that I may need to have in the future, that if I'm honest with myself, and I'm honest that I will make mistakes, because I'm not perfect, and I'm born in a society that is not perfect, and I have absorbed that society, which isn't perfect, that I will make mistakes. And I'll have to admit to those mistakes and handle them as they come. And this book will help me do that. I recommended a lot of books. I recommend pretty much every book I read. It's almost a joke at this point. But I've never said, you must read this book. I've never been that forceful to say, everyone should read this book. Oh, maybe I have. But I've never meant it the way I mean this. So, White Fragility, by Robin DiAngelo, potentially the most important book I have ever read. I implore you to read it too, and take the challenge for yourself to see if you can truly get through this book and really say still that you have never been part of the problem. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.